How's it going, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Yes, it has been a while. I'm very sorry about that. I do have a video. I'm going to link it up here somewhere on this side or this side. I don't know what orientation it'll be when I upload the video, but it will be there. I have forgotten the title, but it's going to be basically explaining where I've been, why I've been, who I've been, how I've been. I've already said that. So this video, as you can see in the title, is going to be talking about me trying Apple for the first time. Was I impressed? Was I disappointed? You'll find out soon. So to give a little background for Apple, I've always had kind of a vendetta against Apple. I always hated the product, and there was no reason behind that other than at the time me thinking the prices were just too expensive. But where I came from back then is my thought process was I could not understand why people would pay 2 to 3 times more for a product that I felt was inferior to a Windows machine, Windows laptop. So this is the crazy part. I even hated Apple so much that when I was younger, and I had a self-service repair business, I would not repair any Apple devices. So I ran my self-repair business for about 6 years. In the total lifespan of the business, I repaired maybe 1 Apple laptop. And the only reason I did that was because it was a family friend and they were desperate to have that laptop back in working order. So I made that one exception for that 1 laptop many years ago. So yeah, that's the history behind me and Apple. I've always hated the product. My reasoning was that based on price. So I was what you would call a Windows, Android fanboy, very loyal to the brand. Anything Apple, I despised, I hated. Would not touch it, would not repair it. I would not help people that asked about the product if I can repair it, other than the family friend. Also, there is this other exception I made for my sister, who had a storage issue on her Mac. Because I'm Linux and I know command line, I was able to get in there and fix that. But that was the only other exception that I made for the Apple product itself. All right, guys, so confession time real quick. 5 months ago was the very first time that I tried Apple. There it is, there you go. After many, many years, I finally gave it a try. And I'm gonna tell you why I gave it a try and what made me go that path. And it has to do with my career. So I'm a Linux admin by trade. That means I use a lot of command line. I do a lot of things within Linux. So before this, I would be on a Windows laptop running WSL or Windows Subsystem for Linux, or I would have a Linux virtual machine that I would use for testing, whether I be coding, deploying, automation. That was where I spent my time. So WSL or Linux VM, that's where I would be on my Windows machine. So upgrade time came. I had the choice to choose between a Windows laptop or a Mac. And this is where things get a little funny. You see, I had a Windows laptop for a couple years. I've had a lot of trouble with it. Blue screens, random reboots, batteries just depleting within a few hours. And I got very tired of that, and talking to my other co-workers, my other Linux admin friends, they were all about Mac. You should try Mac. You should go on Mac. You should do Mac. So reluctantly, I said, you know what? I'm getting this machine for free. I don't have to pay for it. It will give me a chance to at least try it out. I have the option to give it back and get a new Windows machine. Let me tell you, the first probably month that I tried Mac, I hated it. I wanted to go back to Windows. I was feeling like it just wasn't for me. Everything was different. So what did I notice first about moving to Apple from being on Windows for many, many years? So the very first thing I noticed coming from a Windows laptop was there was no easy way to do Windows snapping. So if you're not familiar with that, it's when you click on a window and you just kind of drag it to the side, and it will automatically snap it to the side of the window that you currently are pulling it towards. And Mac doesn't have an easy way to do that without buying a third-party app which allows you to do that. That was a big pain point for me. That's one of the pain points that made me want to move back to a Windows laptop very quickly. The second thing was the change in file system, file structure. I'm very familiar with command line, very familiar with how Linux does their file system, so that wasn't too big of a pain point for me, but I didn't have an easy way to access the file system through the GUI, at least without stumbling and fumbling around, and I finally found a way to do it. But there was no easy path to do that. There was no way I could have figured that out without playing around, clicking on folders, and I finally figured out that how you can get to the users folder, get to the root system. And after playing around, I did find that out, but it did take some time. The third thing that was a big difference and took me a while to get used to was the dock. So there's a dock at the bottom of the screen that replaces the Windows Start menu. And when I first started using it, I did have a lot of trouble, at least accessing apps. I guess the ease of everything, where you can just click a button and have all your apps laid out. You can go to the next screen to show more apps. The ease of that kind of caused me issues because in Windows, I'm used to clicking start and searching for it using either the text field or just scrolling through and finding the app I needed or program that I needed in Windows. So with Mac, it's very different. You click the Finder in the dock. Once it pulls up, you then scroll, find your app, click launch, you're done. And in Windows, it was very search-based. So that was a pain point for me. Another thing that I noticed that's very different from Windows and Android is that the Mac operating system is very cohesive. And what I mean by that is how much the ecosystem is connected and kind of threaded together from a Mac to an iPad to an iPhone. All of those are just so nicely knitted together that, I mean, you can pretty much use anything interchangeably. So you can drop files, move files, change files. And it's just so nice to be able to get one file from one device to the other without having to hook up a cable or using something like a file transfer like TeamViewer, which is how I would get files normally if I didn't feel like connecting my phone, my Android phone into my Windows machine. I would just use TeamViewer, file transfer my files there. And it can be quite painful. But with Mac, you don't have to do that. You can use AirDrop. And it's very nice. So another thing that I noticed that was different is how you install programs or apps on Mac in comparison to installing a program or application on Windows. So when you're on a Mac, many programs, you just download it from the web, you drag it over to your applications folder, and you're done. Some you do have to mount and run in an installation window, but getting that installed as well as its dependencies are way easier than it is with Windows. And another thing that I can give Mac that I can't give Windows is how easy it is to install things through command line. For example, you can use a simple install command to install a program, and these commands are baked in. There's no having to install a program, so you can use things like Git and many other utilities that Windows doesn't have baked in from the start. Another point that I noticed, and these are a lot of points I know, but I just want to give you all the information in as raw as a format I can give you to really show you how different Windows and Mac is. So the next thing is things just work way better when compared to a Windows machine for work. For work, I had so many things blocking me when it came to Windows, whether it be security agents, which are still on the Mac, but they're utilized in different ways on the Mac. But when it comes to Windows, I had to go through so many hoops to get something running and working because it didn't have the dependencies I needed. I had to install programs, had to allow it through security agents. And with Mac, it's much more different. The apps on Mac, the programs, they just work much better than Windows. And that makes my life a lot easier when it comes to doing work-related items through a machine. The machine is supposed to enable you to get things done in a very time-efficient way, and Windows just didn't do that for me. It just took way too much time, and I can do it much more quickly on a Mac now when compared to a Windows machine. And the last item I have on my list, it's such a small detail, but it is life-changing. The reboots on a Mac, man, they're so smooth. It's like you didn't even reboot. You do a reboot, your programs all come back up, and Windows is moving that route, but it still lacks when compared to Mac and what it can do. I mean, just reboot, boom, few minutes later at most, and you have all your programs back up as if a reboot never happened. And that is just so nice. I don't know if I can go back to a Windows machine for work now that I've been on Mac. All right, so these are my final thoughts on trying Apple for the first time. So coming from a user that's been using Windows since Windows 95, it was very difficult. It was something that I honestly didn't know if I could stick with at the time. For a whole month or two, I fumbled through Mac. Many times I wanted to give up, go back to Windows, but I decided that I've came this far, I want to stick with it and see if I can get used to Mac, get used to the shortcuts, get used to how the interface works, and so on. So to be honest, I love my Mac. Things on a Mac are just so much easier, so much nicer. It just works better for me as a Linux admin when compared to a Windows machine. And again, this is a crazy point to me because I didn't think I could get to this point with a Mac, but doing tasks that is required of me to be a Linux admin, I can do these tasks in record-breaking time. When compared to a Windows machine, it would literally take me 10 to 15 minutes to do something I can do on a Mac for 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes even less, which mind-blowing. It's amazing. So, was I impressed or was I disappointed? This is going to be crazy, but consider me impressed and a converted Apple fan.